Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome. We're discussing performance with a source editor, which is potentially a path forward for the refactor of the Blob viewer in the repository browser of GitLab. So we identified some hurdles, especially around loading source code for the first time, source editor for the first time, which has to load Monaco. It's a heavy piece of machinery, but it does allow for very amazing things to happen, like quick switch from view to edit, but also important that Tim mentioned in the issue is the stop rendering the diff markup on the server and send the raw data of the file from the server, which is much simpler on the infrastructure side of things. And then we render the markup around the content of the file on the front end or inside Monaco. And that's a good advantage from the perspective of infrastructure, that we get all the benefits of Monaco itself, even in read-only mode when presenting the content of the file. So that's kind of like the pros in a nutshell. The cons is just it's a lot of code, which is one. The assets itself, and the other is the weight on the front end has to be somehow mitigated to the point of being faster when rendering read-only, and not worsening the metrics too much. I think we're okay in accepting a little bit of a hit because of the benefits, but it's important to know how can we push this forward without sacrificing the metrics goal that we're being very strict across the board. So yeah, I think that's that's kind of like the introduction to this topic. And I feel like what we're trying to do here today is come up with an idea or a direction on how we can mitigate the cons of Monaco. Did I miss any cons or pros? Anybody wants to mention something else that I haven't mentioned?
I think that the most important part would be to understand the cons that you brought up in the last meeting, apart from the cold cache loading of a source file. What are some other cons that you stumbled over too?
So I don't know if this is a cold cache, but we had that regression in production when we were loading it inadvertently about the browser crashing. I think it is cold cache. I think it happens even on a warm cache. So a very large file kind of froze the browser for many seconds. It went from 11 seconds to 40 seconds of total blocking time. That would be like a high total blocking time. But I don't think that's the culprit of Monaco. I think it's the culprit of the joining of the current code in the page with Monaco. So there's probably some areas there that we can work on, of joining those two code bases where now it blocks, but there's probably some listeners on the page that's being triggered when we're loading Monaco somehow, or importing Monaco, because I think that was the mistake. Right, Jacques, is there anything else or Dennis?
No, I'm just going through our meeting notes for the previous meeting. Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it all.
Dennis, anything else that you want to mention?
Well, I think you've summed it up nicely. I'm not sure. I'm not aware of the large file loading in relation to source editor or a Monaco in particular. But that's an interesting thing. I do not think there has to be any. There should be any source editor or Monaco editor related thing related to the large files, because technically there is nothing like the way Monaco loads the files. It's like just that visible number of lines on the screen at a time. So it doesn't process more than that unless you start scrolling. So, and then it reuses these existing lines. So shouldn't be that. Apparently, the biggest hit was just the network request, and then depending on the file type, how that file has been processed by the other scripts. But from the editor side, it shouldn't be an issue. At least, as I said, I haven't seen any related issue to this.
So what I was meaning, what I was aiming at or mentioning is the thing that oh, I blanked. The performance discussion we had recently, because it popped up in production. Grant, he mentioned that on Slack, that we had a big regression in the numbers. And then so the theory was that when your MR Dennis that stopped importing Monaco when the feature flag was off, that would mitigate it. So just by importing it onto the page, somehow that made the page block from 11 seconds to 40 seconds. And that was a very large file. So that's that was the case I was talking about. And we've seen multiple times that Monaco handles that well. So that's why I'm 98% sure that it's our code that is doing that, not Monaco. So that's one of the things that we can take a look at, is what exactly caused it from our perspective, from our side of the code. Is there, like, I don't know, some pop over code or some listeners that are being triggered that is causing that? Like we've seen cases in the past that even the vsafe HTML has caused a lot of TBT to go up. So maybe it's a vsafe HTML that is causing that to begin with. I don't know, but we could take a look at that.
That would be an interesting experiment to see, like
Cool.
the scalability of the source editor, because actually I didn't do that myself yet, but to figure out how the size of the file affects the loading. But again, this is pretty secondary issue, I think. The main concern is the loading performance of the editor itself, right? So that's the main thing. And how we deal with the large files, we can take it after this.
Yeah, and we know that it can handle, because we've seen other tools render huge files. So
that's the best comparison. If they can do it, we should also be able to do it. And we are very, very bad at rendering large files on the backend at the moment. I mean, when we fixed the SVG icon problem, this already improved a lot, but I've seen that emoji JSON can take 70 seconds on the backend to render the API request, and that's ridiculous.
Right.
So I did some tests with bigger files that take 10, 15 seconds to get the API response, and then on top of that, it's sent as a huge bucket. So we can't do any performance optimization on the front end. We are just injecting a huge DOM element with thousands of DOM nodes that get rendered and styled and everything at once. We don't have any control over doing virtual scrolling. If they are huge files, there's no possibility.
Yeah.
The only thing that we could do is tell the API, hey, send us maximum 800 lines, and then we split up the files. That's creating a huge amount of complexity. And the servers are already under a lot of pressure. You can see this very clearly if you just look at our performance measurements. You have a seesaw. You see on a lot of pages, some bigger, some lower, but you see day and night cycles, which is, in my opinion, should not happen. If you get your system to 100% right, the impact of load shouldn't be visible straight ahead. Should only happen on very specific days. But we need to get to a point where we can, right now, the main focus is on database, but I think there are tons of other topics. Two of the biggest topics that I've seen from the backend side, rendering files and code highlighting of those, because what we even do is files that are not even highlighted on the backend are going through the pipeline, etc. And the other thing is markdown comments. So doing the live markdown rendering is a huge thing on the backend. I'm also looking into offloading parts there, of rather doing it than on the front end, because right now we are doing this for each and every comment and very heavy process. So yeah. And the other things that I saw simply was we could decouple meta from content, because we simply can go to the raw endpoint on the API. That's also nice. There we rather have the biggest problem with authorization. I think I mentioned it at some point that if you take the same file and you put it in a public project, 1,000-line files, it takes 20 milliseconds to load from the backend. If you take the same file and you put it in a private project, it takes around 500 milliseconds just to get authenticated and authorized to actually take a look at the file. So if we are able to improve this by as much as I want to have it improved, this should also go down to a maximum of 100 milliseconds. This means that if we do this right with startup.js and prefetching and preloading Monaco and mitigating, we should be able to get the whole file content of a 1,000, 2,000 line file in 100 milliseconds, which is nothing compared to what we are doing right now. So those were my main targets, to really take the load off from the backend. Also the library that we are using is, as far as I know, quite outdated, because the person that was a maintainer left GitLab ages ago and is not really maintaining it anymore. So we even don't have support for a lot of files. And Monaco gives it for free because they are continuously updating all the language services, etc. We can even write our own extension for our YAML GitLab bam files.
We already have some custom ones.
Perfect. And we can reuse that with the VS Code extension. So I think if we shift our focus there, and yes, I know there's an impact on loading straight away the specific file, but for the rest, if you think about it, if you go to a project, you will never have a code file on the first hit. So if you go to the project, you will not have a code file. So as soon as we have rendered the README, we could already start loading Monaco for the whole application in that sense, so that we go for either Webpack loading of Monaco, that we have it ready as soon as you go through the directories or to a file. The other thing is that we have currently in preparation, and I hope that I have some time to finalize this, is the whole PWA thing. And one of the first targets to get this going and using this would be caching our bundles. And we could also prioritize. I would do hand picking at the beginning. And one of the things would then be Monaco. So in reality, as soon as you hit the domain, we already start preloading. We could even go as further as, if we get a background sync confirmation, then we could even check regularly if GitLab has a new version deployed, and then can go on and check and preload Monaco even before you hit GitLab, if you go it completely through. So I think there are a couple of nice ways of mitigations, and we have a clear target. So when I did the POC, one of the base things, and we discussed this in the application performance call, is this is like an evolution of all our performance measurements. We started with loading because we needed to start somewhere. Loading measurement is the easiest. And if you don't have anything on screen, you can't do anything. So let's start with loading. This is a classic thing, and it's pretty important, especially also for all the external tools. But it's not just it's not the experience. And we have seen, there was a comment this week from McBride on the CEO channel, who has changed something with the static site editor, one line, and then it took 25 seconds to save, commit, and create an MR, which is way too long. And that's what the people are recognizing, getting frustrated. And that will be our next step. And that is something we are starting now, and we are really focusing on. If we want to improve our SaaS score, if we really want to improve the user experience, we need to have the full experience measured. What are the tasks? What are the actions that users are doing? We need to measure those, and we should get those down in total. Where loading is, yes, it's the starting point, but it's like a classic game. You can exchange a little bit of more loading time And especially if you mitigate that nicely and do this nicely, and plus adding enough borders and checks in between that we are not including the bundle, and we have with the quality team stuff in place that should get us there, that at some point, if we include it by mistake, then we should already block it on staging, or at least see it very, very early. And that's what also happened to some extent now. And then we are fine. We can exchange. If we get everything past the loading by 50% faster, I don't care if we load a little bit longer on code cache. And that is something I'm very happy to bring to the rest of the company, so that people are not getting, oh my God, this loading graph is going up. No, but yes, the loading graph went up on purpose, but even there I see that we, apart from one use case, which is code cache on one single file, I think we shouldn't have a problem. What do you think?
I think that would be, we would need help there in spreading the message that this is an exception. I like the idea of like eager loading. As soon as the repository browser boots up, it might not be the project homepage. It could be a folder as well. So I'm going to put here our folder. The one thing that I did not mention yet, I don't see that as a con, but it's a cost, is that after this is in place, we'll have to re-implement the code intelligence tools we have currently on top of the markup. Source graph would have to be updated, but they have a layer on how to implement that. So we would have to probably implement that as a source editor extension. And the same thing for the GitLab code intelligence that we already have built.
By the way, about the source graph, I might confuse the things, but we do have source graph in WebID, right? So it does have the layer for the editor.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware that it was working on the WebID.
But it's like the standard source graph, right? So no, not custom, not the custom thing. It's like pure source graph.
Sure. Yeah. No, but that's what I think we do. So basically, they add callouts to their platform. When you click the link, you go there. The one that we built stays within our code base, stays within GitLab.com. But that's just to mention that on the call. Going back to what Tim was saying, I feel like that's a way forward for us to do. You think that we'll be able to put the metrics, so to put the site speed, for example, testing only a second visit? Or I mean, they already do multiple loads, right?
Yes, you can. We have some of our routes are currently already tested with hot cache.
Oh,
so we could even, I think we have it already for the project homepage at last.
Okay, I'm not really aware of that configuration on the metric side, but that would be an interesting thing.
But I have discussed this for a long time with Christy and things like that, and they are totally aware of, rather let's improve the overall performance for the user and the whole experience, rather than specific loading times. But yes, loading times is our starting. We need to have a common understanding of where to start, and it's really about that I want to investigate also for all other areas. What are the common use cases? What are things that people do, and make those then faster? Because that's where people then are like, I think GitLab is a little bit snappier. It's a little bit faster, and that's where we want to get. That's our main goal. Nothing else. It's really that people see we have improved, not just by numbers, but also that you have the feeling how that my daily job is faster.
Right.
I would like to make just one comment about measuring only the code cache. I like by default site speed, I think, does 2 runs now, right? So first one is cold and the second one is hot already, right? So
no,
they
are both cold.
Both cold. Oh, okay.
As long as you don't configure them, they are always with complete empty cache.
Okay, but that's great to know. But the point is that we should not, in my opinion, we should not rely purely on the hot cache. We have to know if things go nuts on the first load as well. So we have to do the both things. Otherwise, we might miss something really, really dramatic.
Yeah.
Like in this case that Grant posted when we had the LCP over 40 seconds. If we would measure only on the hot cache, we might have missed this this problem, right? So we should not ignore cold cache results.
Hot cache measurement in place. We already have them. Not for all the routes, but for some of the routes, because I wanted to compare them to see the differences especially. And if the magic drop down is, let me share my screen, is this thing here. So here you can switch between desktop, and which is with the code cache. So for example, the GitLab project home has an LCP with code cache of 2.498 seconds. And if you do the same thing with cache, which is quite simply, it goes to the gitlab.com/explore page, and afterwards it loads the specific page. So it's not even hot cache on the same page. That is also something to remind. And then we come down to an LCP of 1.4 seconds. So if you would go hot, what's the correct term of this? So if you go hot cache, then I believe this would be even lower. I think you are muted, or I can't hear you. Andre? Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Cool. So I was saying that we don't really know whether the user might be clicking a link to the blob. So for example, it could be on a merge request, but it could be outside of GitLab completely. So yeah, but as soon as they go through a GitLab page, we should be able to, if we have the service worker in place, to mitigate that through the service worker by loading the Monaco within that. So do you think that we will fall into the risk of adding everything into the service worker to cache? Because like for us, the Monaco is really important, but I'm pretty sure other groups have other big code applications that they would like to load immediately. Do you see anything else that might be just to make sure that we're not loading like 100 megabytes on the first load?
GitLab UI, but the service worker would anyhow load it async compared to the rest of it.
Right.
So it's not overboarding the CPU as far as I know. But the main thing that we have that is actually used is Monaco. If you look at the Webpack bundle analyzer, everything else is stuff. So it's what is it? So let me share my screen again. If you look at it, this is all Monaco. That's the TypeScript worker, that's Monaco itself, balsamic viewer. I'm pretty sure this is very much used across GitLab Node. So I think this is nothing that I would definitely handpick them. And then you have already the merge request show. Then we have the notebook viewer, the open API viewer, so really special stuff. YAML work is, I think, also Monaco, if I'm not mistaken. PDF viewer, design page. Yeah, so that to be honest, the biggest thing that I would add on top of that is most probably only GitLab UI and take this in its own library, but you load this anyhow in the first load. Because yeah, every page should use it. But I'm not seeing really anything differently apart from that. There are also no bigger libraries that are used across the stage that are not in main at the moment. We maybe get to a certain stage where we can throw jQuery Slim out of the main bundle and then rather preload it for the service worker. Might be something at some point, which feels weird, but as long as we then have a couple of extra plugins and special viewers that still rely on it, yeah, why not? But for everything else, it seems that Monaco would be in reality the perfect starting point, but maybe also the main thing anyhow. We are working very heavily also on the plan side to work into that direction of having one single application for the issue detail, the issue list, plus the issue board, for example, so that you're also able to switch very, very fast there. And maybe at some point we will also preload then the whole issue application in that sense, so that if you hit an issue, you're also very fast. And maybe the same for MRs. Those are my 3 main targets.
Okay, I was typing. That's cool. So I think there's a couple of things here that we need to look into more deeply. So this would essentially, if the way to mitigate it would be to cache it through the service worker and optimize for like a warm cache testing approach, we kind of put this as a requirement. So we would need to have service worker put in place before we can ship this refactor. And that's okay, because we do have a long way ahead of us regarding rewriting the viewers and everything. We are preparing it in a way that we'll be able to enable whenever we want, even if all the viewers aren't re-implemented already. We'll just send them to the Haml view while they're being implemented for that type. The other ones will go to the new ones. So we'll have pretty much a good control about when to turn this on. So we'll definitely, we can make progress on this front from the code base perspective until we have the service worker in place. But I feel we need to.
Or if we go,
yeah,
we could also try of simply eager Webpack loading, so that we simply take it out of the bundle, but we say on the optional conditional loading of Monaco, we could already say eager, which basically then starts as soon as you are not doing anything anymore. That might mitigate anyhow already a lot of cases. That is something we should try out. Then even perhaps is the service worker not as a high of a priority or blocker. But I believe that if we have the service worker in place, and the only thing that is currently looks weird is that a couple of tests are breaking to very weird reasons. I need to look into that. But apart from that, it would be ready that you just add the UL, and that's it. Then we are there with caching Monaco, because we have this not so funky but needed setup that the service worker JS is in reality a Ruby file, and with that you have then access to already in the service worker to the actual paths of the assets, which mean that we have simply the asset conversion of super magic Rails stuff to Monaco already in place. So that shouldn't be too hard.
Okay, that's definitely something we can get in place quicker, I guess, and take a look at and how that would work and how that would impact both when it loads and also the warm cache loading.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I wanted to say something else. Yeah, we can go on with the development of that, but I think we still need to validate a few things. We need to talk to Grant, I guess, and the quality team about this, about setting up a measurement, or at least having them informed of the plan of the current path forward. Oh, do you want to talk about this version upgrade?
Yeah, this is also a question what we might get there from upgrading, because we are more than a year behind the current version of Monaco. So the latest came out in March this year, and we are currently using the version from last year, February. And there are a couple of versions.
There were reasons for that, because at some point, mid last year, we tried to upgrade Monaco, and we technically, like anything related to editing, has been crashed, has been crashing. So there were some breaking changes introduced there. So I will just need to take a look at that. from the source editor perspective. So yeah, absolutely. I've checked the latest version yesterday. So yeah, according to the changelog, there are a lot of things that might help us to make the Monaco footprint and impact less intrusive, but upgrading isn't the easiest part. Yeah.
I was expecting that. I was mainly checking in on might there be something that is fixed by now that we have ran into, and that we have keep an eye on it, that we are making progress there. Because I think if you look at such a huge, and that's the nice part for me also to use Monaco, this is a very, very, very much repository or library that is invested so much into it, as it's the baseline of VS Code, that we get this for free in that sense of reusing a lot of engineers' bandwidth inside, and I think that's a huge advantage that we could add there. So cool. If we have this anyhow in mind, that's awesome. And
yeah, I'm putting at the bottom of the agenda two lists. One is the future investigations, which are spikes or things we need to create POCs on. The other is future work, and this will translate into issues, and then we can find assignments for these. Dennis, it would be great if you could. I can talk to Roman if you need to get you some time for this work, because I think it benefits everyone. You being a staff as well, so it definitely helps out. I already talked to him a little bit, so he already knows that there's going to be some incoming work.
So
that's that. So Tim, when you say that you're loading in Webpack, would that be on specific pages? Like would we put that on, like every time you visit the repository browser area, like a folder or the project homepage, you would also load Monaco as an asset? Okay.
Yeah, so you can say in the conditional Webpack loading that as a mode, I think eager or so, and then it basically takes a look as soon as the browser is done with everything, then it will go ahead and already start loading of the next thing.
Okay, cool. All right.
I think it would be for the loading from the loading perspective, again, to account for the hot cache measurements. Technically, we could start loading Monaco, like give instructions to start loading Monaco whenever we have any project context. So because once the user gets into the context of a project, there is a very high probability that they will hit that or another route, including the editor. Now that we have source editor everywhere. And it can, and that's exactly the thing that we talked about during the first call with you, Andrea. That there are two things technically that we can do to improve the loading performance. First one is to start loading to preload source editor or Monaco in particular. On the project level, right? But then again, now when we have all the editing experiences unified and they are all based on source editor and Monaco, so I think it's absolutely proper time to make at least the Monaco chunk the first-class citizen that we just preload on the domain level with just resource hint or anything like this. So no matter whether we hit the editing route or not, getting it would be fine. This would affect the mobile users, but our product is not very mobile friendly anyway, especially when it comes to editing. So unfortunately, but in order to improve, you're muted, Tim.
Sorry to jump in. I even saw a couple of changes that they did to Monaco for fixing it on mobile and to make it better. There was even on the latest improved on Android and stuff. So
I think it's more about like tweaks. There is a like ever-going thread in the issue tracker for Monaco where technically like it's abandoned for like people for several years. People leave comments like, is there any progress in this front? And then just like the core team just refuses to answer there, because like no, it's not on the radar. So Monaco is not mobile editor, but anyway, like in order to make the to benefit the whole product, I think making it the first class citizen and load it right when we hit the domain, that would be beneficial. Like just do it with resource hint, do it with, I don't know, with anyhow else. And then like, so combining these things, so preload it with resource hint, put it into the service worker, and then like we have the combo of the things that technically on the hot cache will make things super fast. But that's the decision that we have to make, that the editor now the source editor now becomes not just the editor routes related. It's the product wide asset, and it's important for the whole product, and it has to be treated properly in accordance to this value.
Yep, especially since it goes to read only, just to display the blob information. So you mentioned mobile, just to make sure that we mentioned this. Do we know of any problems on the displaying of the content, not the editing? So
nope.
Displaying
works fine. It's all like all the funky things begin when you start editing, and like when you tap what to do. Is it you're focusing to type in the things, or is it to show the menu? So that's
touch is hard.
Things.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So like it's all related to touch, but rendering the content, no problem.
Okay.
It's all HTML and CSS after all. Like there is no problem there. Mobiles can do that.
Right. Yeah, I was during this week I was thinking of alternative ways for us to, like, the cold cache version of the blob would be rendered with the old code base of the Hamel, and then the second would be rendered with the Monaco, but that would just keep us having to babysit two code bases. So I dropped that very quickly.
And have two problems instead of one.
Yeah,
right?
so
we will still have the load on the back end, and then we will still have the hit on the loading performance.
So that's fine.
I think it's either or.
Yeah, I agree. So we're gonna go for that. We do want to, and overall, I think we have some pretty good direction here on things to explore, making sure that the code base of source code doesn't clash with the Monaco and makes it worse and blocks the whole UI. So that's going to be one for us, Jacques, to see how that really happens, which could be this. So that's one. How does the source code base interact? That's not the right word. With Monaco on load. That's something for us to look into, Jacques, to see if we can investigate and see if we can find what's causing that holdup. Because that's besides the source editor. That's really specific to our hosting area. Right. So I can take care of engaging with the quality team, getting them up to speed with what we're trying to do. We need them on board on this. So I can set up a call with Grant and kind of inform him and get him up to speed with everything. Then Tim, if I need help, then I'll probably loop you in, just to get everybody on board of the whole measuring.
And I will keep everyone also informed on those things and the things that we want to tackle. David is completely on board. David DeSanto from product. He really sees the advantages of the approach in total, and that we perhaps need to invest some costs. But overall, I think we should be able to do it in a way that you not even will recognize it, that we are loading each in the background. So.
Yeah, I just want to make a question.
Sure, Dennis.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but so we had like As I mentioned during the application session, when the application performance session team, when you demoed this, like this is awesome. This is wonderful. I just have one question about handling the other types of files that are not code. So Markdown, like we saw those viewers for like Balsamiq, PDF, and things. So for those, we will still have to use the existing viewers, right? It's only for the code type files.
Yeah,
right?
But yes, the code files were my top one priority. All the other files, I would say we are not that great, and it's a little bit chaotic because I was looking with the students from the Morehouse course also before I did that into the different types that we have. I think if we can reiterate and organize them, we might even also be able. I think that the long-term target might be really to load all files from raw endpoints because they are so much faster. They are the only thing that they are doing is authentication check, and the rest might even come from a CDN at some point. So you can have really fast load times and render everything else on the front end, which shouldn't be a problem. Because I think some of the viewers I looked into, they are just adding a couple of classes and then say, yeah, initialize function call. That's it. So, but let's keep them at the lower list because I believe that the main thing is code, markdown files, binary files. We should be already there, but those shouldn't be a problem to load an image directly and not wait for the 10 lines of classes, etc. So as soon as we have the biggest hurdle, but the most important hurdle done with code and organize this in a nice view application with reusable components for real, then I think we can extend them also very nicely, give this also to the community and make this better organized and go down the route. But yes,
Sorry,
there will be some time where we need to try it both.
Are you saying that they would be rendered inside Monaco, inside the source editor at all, or not?
No, not.
Separate.
So basically the code file loads Monaco, everything else we need to see if we either can load a view component that loads then directly the raw files, aka an image viewer, because I really don't believe that we need the backend to render us some HTML to then initialize some JavaScript. That doesn't sound right. So we should be able to replace them by specific view components in there.
Yeah, I think there's still a decision to be made. Doesn't have to be made now about whether the viewer for an image or a viewer for a PDF, should we do that on the Blob view app, or should we still load the source editor, but the source editor doesn't render Monaco and renders their own viewer inside source editor? That's kind of like a separate conversation, but we can have that later. It doesn't really.
Yeah, and you know best about.
Yeah, there's no roadblocks there.
The only thing that I would think about on a long term, and just as a funky idea in the back of my head, is what I saw when I built the POC was this bonus thing. And that was really for me a bonus thing. It was nothing that I thought in the first place. I had this, and seeing it then of clicking edit button and having it 3 milliseconds later is such a change to it. What about all the other file types? I would really foresee that at some point it would be really awesome that you are not only able to edit code files, but that you are able to, I mean, how many funky libraries are out there by now that you can do very, very fast image compression and image conversion through WebAssembly. If you just look at an image, you click edit and you can resize, rescale, run it image optimized and hit commit again. And the same for all the other interesting file types. I think that is something we need to keep in mind. And if we do this right and structure it right, then we should be able to extend this really nicely and get an advantage over those other products that focus to 100% on code. And yeah, I think that would be simply awesome to have image editing, 3D viewing, and maybe some work there. And yeah, I think that would be cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of the conversation that we had in the past call about if we do these on the source editor level, will benefit the whole of GitLab instead of just improving the blob. And that's, again, I think the roadblock here is Monaco itself. So we can talk about that later in the perspective of creating those viewers.
That's the interesting thing. Like technically the so first of all, I would definitely evaluate the idea of making the viewers as the extensions to a source editor, simply on the premises that then we will have those in a very isolated sort of in the scoped manner that would allow us to prevent things like we had last week when the shared component gets updated and then the whole the whole bunch of routes are affected because it is the shared component and the component is shared among all of those. Keeping it in the isolated manner as an extension to source editor would help us sort of have more control technically, and it's just the safer way of preserving this functionality to my taste. But there is also one thing. I'm working on figuring out how to asynchronously load Monaco on the source editor level, so that we would not be tied by only dynamically loading source editor in the sort of end user components. So I'm trying to sort that out on the component level, and in this case, we might even say that we send a parameter to editor light, like when we render a blob, we do know the type of the file, whether it's a code file or it's a viewer file, sort of. So, and then we can, based on that parameter, we send that parameter when we initialize the source editor. And based on that, we might even say, okay, we do not need Monaco here. We are just in the viewer type, or we need some other sort of like front-end, back-end-ish technology. So Monaco is used for editing the code files. Then another library is used to edit like images, like Team, for example, said. So we can sort of create this set of backbones handling different types of files, and then have the source editor as the frontier of all those and like gatekeeper for all those libraries. That would be awesome, actually.
Okay, no, we'll keep that in mind as we go forward. I think our biggest hurdle, and this is kind of a fork in the road that I kind of want to mention, but before the call is ending, which I see there's two ways forward when we look at competition, and one is the example that Tim gave, GitHub 1s.com, that loads a very quick editing experience on a GitHub file. When we look at the other alternative and how GitHub itself renders large files and handles like large MRs, for example, they go in the direction of, which is now for us a challenge, like the server-side rendering of things, and they just put it on the page and then they hydrate that. I believe that this is a fork in the road for us, so that once we go in this route, we go more in the direction of a GitHub 1s.com experience rather than the original server-side rendered version. We won't be able to server-side render Monaco, for example, and then hydrate it. Is that correct? That's from my understanding.
That's the easier route. The best example, what you can do if you do this right, is linear.app. I'm not sure if you have seen that or used it. That is something I'm discussing all the time on the Plaid side. It was built by a couple of former Coinbase engineers who have built especially the Coinbase Pro stuff, etc., which is handling quite some data in some milliseconds.
Yes.
And linear app, I'm not sure if I can log in here. Give me a second, because then I can show you at the ending. They have a target. They want to have every action. That's basically the main feature is speed. So it's a project management tool. But they want to have everything done under 100 milliseconds. And it works. I mean, we will see how they will handle when they have some more load on it. But at the moment, they are able to handle it, because what they do is they are doing very, 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 very heavy it's a one single page application, and they do a lot of client-side caching, and they use IndexedDB, and then they tell basically the backend, look, that's my version of it, just give me the diff of it. But they start the application itself by having everything already in place and rendering from there. Can you see my window there? And just that window and not the whole screen, because that's
just the browser.
Yeah, so that's linear. And if you click on it, that's basically how fast the issues are.
Right.
And they do preloading, prefetching, and and then we go back and we go to right. So that's where I want to get. And if I click here on boards and I go back to my issue list and I click here on a board and I see my issue and I type something here and I say edit, save, I go back, it's updated on the board. That's my experience. That's my experience if I have an application that I'm working on a daily basis with. And that's where I want to get GitLab to. On all the areas that I haven't had. That's the experience I want to see on my issues when I'm working with stuff there. That's how I want to see my MRs, and that's how I want to see source code files. And I strongly believe we have the right people for this. We have the technology for this. We should be able to do this. It's simply much harder at the moment because they started with a greenfield project and we have a huge code basis that we are not stopping in between. But if we do enough steps and if we do this right, we can get exactly there. And I mean, I haven't used it professionally in that sense, but I have used it just for the sense of testing, and it's.
Oh no, you could definitely feel the snappy UI completely reacting, and it's one of those cases
you never see a loading.
No, it's just they already had basically they seems like they already load the UI, which is like a PWA basically. You load the UI and then the data is just flowing back and forward. No, I feel like
And I mean, the only last thing, I don't want to have GitLab as a whole to that, but I want to have. I believe the best strategy that we can do is to have specific high usage areas in applications like that.
And user flows.
One for issues, have one for create, and have one for MRs and one for source code. Those are my three major areas. Everything else we can do as we do. But.
Right. No, that I feel like that's a more achievable goal in the short period, in the short scale. Yeah, that sounds good, and I think that's kind of just a more philosophical thing about us to be aware. That's okay, right? So I think we have some outcomes here to explore, and Dennis, I would need your help here with some of these investigations. Particularly, so the Webpack, we can. Do you want to take this investigation of eager loading in Webpack, and maybe reaching out to Lucas or someone. In validating this approach?
Yeah, sure, that's possible, and I'm not sure how this corresponds to loading Monaco as the resource. Well, we do need to know the chunk name anyway, right? So yeah, we have to go through the Webpack. Yeah, I can do that, and I already do while we are talking on my second screen, I already do the research of performance on the large files.
Oh, nice. Cool. So, but basically, what I'll do is I'll create issues for all this future stuff, except the conversations. But I'll create issues for these, and then you can post your findings there, so that it's visible. For everyone who's interested in this thing. Yeah, I'll create one for that investigation of large files as well. And then Tim, just keep pushing the PWA service worker. That'll be on Tim to push. We can support in time we can. So updating the version of Monaco, Dennis, I think that's not for now, but I think that's also something from your side because you have the editor knowledge and all of that.
I will do for when it comes to upgrading Monaco. I think it will make sense to to do it iteratively. And first
Sure.
of all, to create the technical discovery of how it goes, and from that, sort of list all the issues discovered, list all the specs that failed due to this. So there, like it's sort of, it has one entry point, but it has myriads of possible outcomes. So it will start with technical discovery, and I will go on from there, and we'll just pull in other people if I will need help to.
100%. I would just add what Tim already mentioned. Q2 is around the corner. Staff OKRs, I feel like there should definitely be
no pressure at all, right?
No, but it's good because they do serve the function of getting prioritization into your schedule. So
yeah. I think actually I think upgrading Monaco would be a very good OKR. Because it affects the whole product. So but I will think about this. Anyway, like this work will be done. Let's put it this way. It has to be done. It will be done. That's it.
Just puts more pressure on timing. But okay, but the one thing that I would definitely welcome to prioritize is the eager loading on Webpack, because if it's not that, we have to wait for the service worker, because that's kind of like a blocker to release this refactor. So I feel like that would be the one that I will have a little bit more urgency on.
I would. We can phrase it as the eager loading in Webpack, but I will do my best to investigate different possible ways.
Eager loading.
Like uber eager loading.
Sure, that's fine.
So that's sort of combination of different things.
We could also investigate if simply a meta prefetch tag for now works.
Yeah, that's like, we will take the baby steps, and I will start with definitely with prefetching thing, and like that might already give us pretty significant boost. But
we're at time, gentlemen.
About the
go. Very quickly go.
About the service worker, we don't have it in place yet, do we?
No, I'm
in review.
It's basically, I have 2 or 3 failing RSpecs to some really weird reasons. This can take 5 minutes, or as we already know, 5 days. And it also depends a little bit on what explodes apart from that at GitLab at the same time and gets my attention. But the stuff is done. We are really, and then we should have really everything in place to just add the URL, and it should go ahead and cache.
Sounds cool. So okay, got it. Thank you very much. I will keep an eye on that, Amar. Yep.
Thank you.
Last thing of all, should we do this every 2 weeks? Yes or no? Just to see how the progress is going. I'm happy to schedule it if you can't make it.
My mornings are quite free for stuff like that, so happy to do that.
I'll make it repeated to every 2 weeks, and then we'll see if we have no agenda, then we'll just cancel it. All right. Great to see you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
You too. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.